Today we're talking about real healing is real. So why? Why did I choose that title? Why do I talk about it in that way? So the very first thing that I think is important to talk about, if we're going to talk about real healing is real, is what is healing? Because this is the main topic. If this thing is real, what is this thing? And in order to understand what healing is, I feel that first we need to understand what is wounding. We can't really understand what is healing if we can't understand what's wounding. Wounding happens when an emotional need goes unmet. Emotional needs are something that all of us have, and especially when we are children. When we are children, our emotional needs are out there. They are completely exposed. And when we become adults, because many of them have gone unmet, we have closed up a lot. And it's not that those needs are not there, but we have learned to cope with them in one way or another. Either we have closed our hearts, or either we have built walls with people, or we have some level of defense in one way or another. These defenses are an expression of our wounding. And what they do depends on the wounding of each person. They create different effects that at the end of the day are not going to be for our own benefit. Basically, if those things wouldn't be there, we would be living a life that we ourselves are happier to be living. So for example, if a child has an infinite amount of needs, let's say that one of them is to be celebrated when the child does something wrong, because it's common to be like, you've done something great, like look at you got good grades, or you made your bed, or you cleaned your room, and you celebrate them. But when they are not when they do something that it is opposite to what the parent thinks is right, and it's at the end of the day all in the parent's mind, because what the child is doing is all good, it's all exploration, and some things will be celebrated and some others won't. One of the needs is to be always celebrated. So the times where we are not celebrated, the child usually goes into some level of trauma. Somebody mentioned trauma. Hannah, I think you did. And somebody mentioned pain. And both pain and trauma are correlated, because emotional pain, which is when an emotional need goes unmet, creates trauma. And then that trauma, as you said, like we accumulate it throughout life. We go around life with all of these different traumas in us. And so they play out in different ways. This is why sometimes people have really strong emotional reactions to situations that maybe are not that big of a deal. Or you are depressed and you don't understand exactly why, and maybe everything in your life seems to be fine, but then you just cannot resolve this. So why do I have depression all the time? Or why do I have anxiety all the time? Why am I afraid to get on stage? Or why my friend doesn't? What's the difference between these people? So the difference is all of the places in which we have accumulated trauma based on emotional pain from needs that have gone unmet. As adults, we have that too. As adults, we still have needs at all times, but we have learned, because we know ourselves better, how to cope with them. So some of these needs we know, some of the others we could know if we really put some thought into it, and like we focus on, like if I tell everybody, close your eyes and then spend some time understanding what is it that you really need in this moment, you might be able to find things that you wouldn't have unless you put that much effort and focus. And some people would then listen to those needs, and some others would be like, yeah, I think I need that, but it doesn't matter. We tend to talk to ourselves a lot in the same way in which our parents talked to us when we were kids, and on those needs went unmet. So it is very common for us to dismiss our own needs too. And then there are even deeper needs that we don't even know that they are there. And the reason why we don't know is because we have been dismissing them for a very, very long time, to the point that we don't even feel them anymore. There's so many, I encounter this in my practice at all times, where people just don't even understand that, and I can see it with clarity, how much they need a hug, or how much they need to be told that that it's okay to make a mistake, that it's okay to have hurt others, that it's like, there are so many moments that I see people just don't even understand what is it that they need, or even that they have a need. And then with time, as we start doing some healing, here's where we switch back from wounding to healing, people start realizing that these needs have always been there, and that it is drastically important to take care of them. So it is very common, as I was mentioning, for people to not understand why their life is not the way that they wish it would be. Like, why am I depressed all the time, even though I've been to therapy and I've done this and I've done that? Or I have money, or I have an amazing family, and I'm still depressed. What's going on there? Well, what's going on is that there is a need there that has gone unmet, that continues to be there and continues to go unmet, probably in a way that you don't even know that it is there. So now that we know what is wounding, what is healing? Let's give it a few tries. So if wounding is an emotional need going unmet, what's healing?
Meeting our emotional needs.
Beautiful. Meeting our emotional needs. Exactly. So the thing is, it's not always easy to do that. It's pretty simple. We can definitely say it's simple. You can put it in a phrase with 7 words or however many that is. Like just meeting our unmet emotional needs. It's very, very simple. And it's important to name that it's simple, even though it's not easy to do, because when we ask ourselves, what's going on with me, we usually go into really complex routes and complex solutions. And for moments, and here's the topic of our talk today, it might seem like you just cannot heal, or that these things that are in you are unresolvable. Basically, that real healing is not real, that you cannot fully resolve certain things, especially if you've been dealing with something for a very long time. If you've been depressed for 40 years and you tried antidepressants and therapy and this and that, and you're still depressed, then it is not only common, but absolutely understandable that you would feel, okay, I guess this is who I am. I am broken, or there's something wrong with me, or I was born wrong, or whichever one applies to you. You might not be depressed, but you might have problems drinking, and you tried quitting many times, and you even managed to quit for 6 months, and you thought you were done with it, and then it comes back. And it's like, what's wrong with me? Well, I guess I just can't resolve this. Certain things are hard to resolve, but it is as simple as meeting the unmet need. So if we know that it is that simple, at least we know where to start looking. And where to start looking usually is like, which of my needs have gone unmet? Now, obviously doing that will require usually some guidance from a therapist. That has to be good because there's a lot that are not, in my experience, or from your healer, facilitator, shaman, whatever you want to call it. It can also be from a friend, but it's very, very hard to look at your own, what I call blind spots. This is why they are blind. So you cannot look at them by yourself. You do need somebody there to mirror, maybe not for all of them, but definitely for the deeper ones. So surface level wounds, like trauma, sometimes with a little bit of self-reflection, with some meditation, or with some reading a book, or maybe you hear this talk right now, and it starts sparking things in you, and you're like, oh, that brings these ideas to my mind about myself and who I am and all of these things. And that's great. But there are other ones that are deeper, what this means is emotional needs that were really strong, that have gone unmet in key moments of your life. So when something happens when you're 2 or 3 or 4, like in very early formative years, and that need goes unmet, if in that moment you were cracked open and you really needed whatever you needed in that moment, and it has gone really, really unmet, let's say that you have a need, like everybody does, a need for a core family, like a tight, core, loving family. And maybe you were born without a father, or maybe you were adopted, and you already are born with, my family does not want me, even if you don't think that consciously. Or maybe you were born with 3 of your grandparents already dead, and you were born with just 1 of them alive. And these are like little, I mean, they're not necessarily little, but things that we normalize. That if that's how you were born without a father, you were born with, like, you don't think much of it when you're a child. This is all you know. Yet it is making one of the needs for the core family, and to have both loving parents, that's already going unmet. And that is going to create a lot of trauma and a lot of wounding that's going to play out in your personality throughout your life. Now, what does it mean to meet your need? How do you meet the need of having a father if you never had it? Or how do you meet the need of having a loving father if you had a really angry one? Or how do you meet the need of having a mother that would celebrate you whether you have good grades or bad grades, if she only celebrated you when you had good grades and punished you when you had bad ones? Like, how do you meet that? What does it mean to meet the need? That's where some guidance is important, whether it is, as I said, from a facilitator or from a therapist, or any other person that can help you go through that process. Because meeting the need, there's something very common that we get confused, and that is that we think, and it's so understandable, I used to think this too, that the only way to meet that need is by having the thing that you didn't have. So if your mom was not this way, it's for your mom to change. If your dad was angry, it's for your dad to change. And in a way, that is the easiest and also the hardest way to meet the need. It is the easiest for obvious reasons. Like, that's what we didn't get, and if that were to happen, then that's it. There's not much of a process that you have to do. But it's also the hardest because if your dad or your mom would be that way, then you wouldn't have gone through that. The fact that the trauma is there is because that wasn't there, and it is very rare for that to change, because it is very rare for people to do real healing. So the only way for that to change is for those people who have caused the trauma to do their own healing, realize the ways in which they have make your needs go unmet, and then change, like, go and do the proper process of meeting it, which requires acknowledgement, a proper and honest apology, holding you in your emotions, and many other ways. So that tends not to happen. It's very rare. Unless you're a parent, you come to a ceremony, you do your healing, and then you go and acknowledge things to your children. So it is easier for a parent to do that to their children than for somebody to have their parents do that for them, if that makes any sense. Yeah? Was that a little bit of a tongue twister? Yeah, there's not that many people doing healing. And maybe this is the main point that I would like to get across, which is why. Why are people not doing healing? If we would be doing healing, our life would be so much better. Like, at all times, in a way, we're constantly telling ourselves, I wish I would be doing more healing. Yet we don't say that with those words. We say things like, I wish we wouldn't be depressed. We say things like, I wish I wouldn't have so many random strong emotions that show up. I wish I could have a better relationship with my partner. I wish my mom would say sorry to me. And we even say things that are wider than that. For example, I wish the world would be better. I wish there would be no wars. I wish there wouldn't be so much discrepancy between the opportunities that some people are born with in comparison to others with much less opportunities. So all of these things that we're talking about wouldn't actually happen if all of us would be doing healing. So why aren't we doing healing? Well, for two reasons. And maybe just to engage you a little bit, I want to see if anybody can guess either of those two. Why are we not doing healing?
Capitalism.
Capitalism. You're not too far. I mean, capitalism is already a consequence. The way capitalism is constructed is already a consequence of our lack of healing, and our lack of healing prevents us from fixing it too. So it's a little bit of a loop. Yeah, I like the answer, but it's not any of the two that I was thinking about. What else?
Disconnection from our emotions and from nature.
Disconnection from our emotions and nature. It's also not far. It's also not far. It's also a consequence. This could be a little bit of a, I don't know if you guys know this phrase, catch-22. I didn't know it as a non-native English speaker. It's when you don't know where to start. Like, it's a cycle, right? So part of the reason why we're disconnected from nature is because we are already wounded in ways where that has lost the proper value and priority as we actually should have it. And that also prevents us from seeking healing. So all of these reasons that you guys are naming are both causes and consequences, but I wouldn't name them as the main cause. Maybe one more try. Fear. Fear of what? I heard three answers about fear, and I heard them with the same. You guys said the same thing with different words. You said fear of facing yourself. You said fear of what you will find, and truth. Fear of the truth. I like all of those.
And I think we're not educated at all during our life that healing is available, and it seems maybe like it's too big of a mountain to climb. Like, I don't even want to go there.
It doesn't seem that's available, and it's too big of a mountain to climb. Well, you actually pretty much nailed it. That's one of the reasons.
That's because I'm healing.
You're healing. That is actually one of the reasons, and is that we don't actually know that we can heal. Nika used different words, but we don't know that real healing is real. This is why I named this talk that way. We just don't know that that's possible. And theoretically, or in our minds, we might think that we know. But if you actually take a look at how we behave, we don't behave as if we really would. Because when we are in pain, whether that is emotional, whether that is physical or emotional pain, our most immediate tendency is to try to not be in pain, not by healing, but by taking care of the pain. So that is called numbing. You guys all know what that word is? Okay. Yeah. Translating in Croatian. How is it? Otuplivanje.
No.
So we had this idea that we don't really act as if we know that we can actually heal because we go straight into numbing, otuplivanje. So this is important. We get a headache. It is not that common to be like, what is really causing my headache? I'm going to stop that or change that or remove that habit from my life. we usually are like, you pop a pill and it's gone. And a lot of times the headache does not come back. But even then it's not really the best behavior, because it supports the idea that you can always have a escape. And so if you are, let's say that you have a headache because you are really addicted to sugar and you're eating a lot of sugar, which can give you headaches, you might not find out that you are getting your headaches because of the sugar, because there's less of a need to find out, because you know you can pop a pill and it's gone. So you might keep that cycle, eating things that are, and I said sugar, but it could, that might sound a little bit obvious, but sometimes could be other things that we are consuming, like you might be in front of a screen too much, or maybe your posture is not too good, and that's like moving something in your, like one of your vertebrae and creating headaches. Anyway, the thing is, if we wouldn't have anything to numb, then we would only look for healing, whatever that would be. If there wouldn't be antidepressants, then you would only look for ways to heal your depression in ways that it will be definitive. Instead, for most of the times that we experience pain in one way or another, we tend to numb. And of course, individually, that is not necessarily the case in each person and in each one of the situations. But as a society, if you think about it, how societies work, and globally, the whole planet has a much bigger tendency to numb than to heal, which creates the idea that true and real healing it doesn't even come up. So that's one of the reasons. We don't know that real healing is real, because we numb. And then, what's the other reason? So the lifestyle that we've created, 9-to-5 job, etc., is definitely not supportive of healing. This is kind of similar to what we were talking before, where these things are there because we are already wounded, and they are not supportive of a healing environment, but they are not necessarily the cause for it. The other cause for it, I would say, is that healing is not that available. So marijuana is a great case, a great example of this, where is an alcohol the same, is so widespread. It takes care of the pain. So, I mean, we're talking about numbing again. That it's like the need to seek for healing is gone. It's like we're constantly seeking for ways to numb. We don't want to be in pain, and we would love to heal, but we don't know how. And so one of the first one was that we don't know that we can actually heal at the end of the day. And the second is that even if we would know that we can actually heal, we just don't know how. This is why psychedelics have been playing a big important role lately in the idea of healing, because people who have no idea that healing is real and who don't know how to do it, sometimes, even if the facilitator is not good, sometimes they consume the plants, and all of a sudden the plant's guide, like the plant is the facilitator, and they become their own facilitator, and they realize so many things that they couldn't have any other way. And then they come home and realize that they have healed a lot of things, and so now they found those two things. Actually, I can heal, and I know how. As I mentioned, the proper use of psychedelics is key. It's not just taking psychedelics, and it's not the only way to heal. And this is maybe the last thing that I want to mention for today before maybe we go into more questions and answers. But the other ways to heal besides psychedelics is doing parts of the healing process. So we talked about meeting unmet needs, which I don't think I ever finished talking about how to do that. I think I just said, like, yeah, if it didn't happen, it won't happen, right? Is that it for you? No hope? So you can meet your own needs, and there's a process to do that. Another way in which we get wounded which also makes us understand how we heal, is through the processing of unprocessed emotions. So when an emotional need goes unmet, usually you feel something in that moment. So maybe you feel extreme fear, or maybe you feel extreme disappointment, or extreme hopelessness, or extreme anger. Let's say that your dad punishes you for not having good grades. In that moment, there's a need that's going unmet, right, which is being loved even in those moments. But then there's another need that is showing up in that moment, which is to express your feelings. Your dad punishes you, and now I'm angry. That maybe your dad says no TV for 2 days or no dessert, and that sounds terrible. It's like, rah! And then like somehow you express that as a child. Either you throw a tantrum or you whatever, you yell, and then your dad is like, don't talk to your father like that. It was going to be no TV for 2 days. Now it's no TV for 5 days. And you get even more angry, and the punishment gets even worse. And so eventually you stop, because being angry is dangerous. If I get angry, then my needs go unmet even more and more and more, and I get loved less and less and less. And so this anger, which we first started expressing, then we learn to not express, but we're still feeling it. Then eventually we learn to barely feel it, and then at some point we don't even feel it. It's still there, but we don't feel it, or we don't have access to it. It just solidifies there like a rock. So part of the healing process that makes real healing be real is to go and dig for those emotions, especially the ones that have solidified and that became like a stone, and start processing them. Processing is simply feeling them and doing what that emotion wants from you. So if as a child that anger wanted you to just yell and punch a pillow, then that's what you do as an adult. But it's going to feel weird at first. You're going to feel like a child, because it is actually you as a child experiencing that, using your adult body to express those feelings. So the more we can process our own emotions, our stuck emotions, the more we can meet our own needs, then the more we will be liberating all of the things that created the wounding to start with. And so the depression can be gone, the pain in your shoulder can be gone. And it's like, what are you talking about, Ivan? Some of these emotions, when I was talking, for example, about the anger that gets stuck, it can get stuck in a part of your body and create pain. And then you take an MRI, and then the doctors have no idea. They tell you that everything is fine. And then you go to some form of healing setting, you liberate the emotion, you process it, and then your pain is gone. Your physical pain is gone. It's like, how can that be? For somebody who came from a super scientific background, I studied engineering, this sounded like complete craziness to me. It's like, what are you talking about? But I've seen it enough times, maybe thousands of times, and I've seen it in myself too. So that's how you do some healing. What do psychedelics do? It's like the oil in the machinery. Like if the machinery is a little bit, and I'm telling you, just go and look for your emotions, and you'll be like, okay, let me think about them. Yeah, I don't feel them. What are you talking about? I think something is in there, but like, I have no clue what you're talking about. Like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm fine. And then you take some plants, and then they take you straight there, like it's like the road has been paved. It's so easy to get there, and you're like, oh my God, did I have all of this in me? This, I would have never expected that. So, but what can happen in those moments is that an emotion shows up. For example, this is very common in healing settings. An emotion shows up, and your facilitator, if you are doing it with a facilitator, has no idea how to hold that emotion, because your facilitator shares the trauma with you. So that facilitator has been traumatized in ways that are very similar to the ones in which you have been. And so if I am angry toward all women because my mom was abusive, and then you are angry toward all women because your mom was abusive, and then you come for advice to me, I will probably give you the wrong advice. I will probably be like, yeah, they all suck. And that's not going to be healing for you because I am not coming from a healed place either. And so if your anger comes up in a healing setting and then your facilitator has a hard time holding anger, which is a hard emotion to hold because most of our parents have a hard time holding that emotion, then your anger might not be properly held, and therefore it might not feel safe enough to be processed properly. Healing requires a proper facilitation and a proper holding of your emotions and the proper seeking of them.
What does that mean to hold your emotions?
Great question. What does it mean to hold your emotions? It means, for example, I think it's easier to understand it is what does it mean to not hold your emotions properly. So for example, you say something now to me that makes me really angry, and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be angry. Like, I shouldn't be angry. Like, what you said isn't that bad. What's wrong with me? Or I'm like, I get really angry, and I'm like, okay, I'll do what you told me. Like, I totally dismiss it. Or maybe I get angry and I
Break his head. Break his head.
yeah, maybe I punch you in the face. That's still like not like there's so many ways in which the emotions can come up, and I just don't know what to do with it. When a proper holding of that emotion would be like, right now I'm feeling really angry, and inside of myself I'm telling to myself it's okay that I'm angry, because very often we tell ourselves it's not okay to feel what I'm feeling. It's not okay to feel shame. It's not okay to feel angry. It's not okay to whatever I'm experiencing, it's not okay. I should be feeling something else. Or for example, I've done so much healing work. By now I shouldn't be angry. Like, I'm ashamed that I am angry. Or what you did wasn't that bad. I shouldn't be feeling angry because there's so many ways in which we don't hold our emotions properly. And that's kind of on the bright side. The darker side is to completely not feel it, even though it's there. So to hold your emotions basically is an acceptance of every emotion that you have, understanding that every emotion that you have experienced is a consequence of something that's not your fault, but it's more like your surroundings have naturally made that emotion emerge, and that emotion is okay. And so, for example, I have a friend who has a really hard time with sadness. They just don't allow themselves to feel sad. They just don't know how to hold it. So when somebody else feels sad, what my friend does is they immediately try to make that person not sad. And a lot of people have a hard time with sadness. So they immediately try to make you feel better. So let's say you come to me sad. For me to hold your emotion properly would be like, you are sad right now. That's okay. Let me give you a hug. Or do you even need a hug? Maybe you don't even like. But the idea is not to change that. Not to change your sadness. Not to make you feel anything different. But to be with you in your sadness. So for you to hold your own emotions properly is to be with yourself in your emotion. Instead we say, oh, don't be sad. Or but think about all the great things that you have in your life, or I'll be there in a minute, or it's just whatever I can do to change your state. And so a lot of times it comes from a good intention, it's so that you can feel better. But that is what would be the light intention, and almost every single thing that I do has also a shadowed intention. So the light intention is, I really want you to feel better. The shadowed intention is, I have no idea how to hold your sadness. Your sadness makes me uncomfortable. I don't know what to do with it because I don't know what to do with my own sadness. If I know what to do with my own sadness, which is, I am sad right now, that's okay, I am with it. And I don't have any problems being sad. I don't even have a preference to be not feeling this way. Of course, joy tends to feel better than sadness, but I'm sad right now and that's okay. And if you think about it, a lot of children have a really easy time holding their emotions. When a child is sad, they cry, and they don't want to change it. We as an adults project that. We think that the child does not want to be sad, but what the child wants is to express the emotions that are coming out of them, and then they do it super freely. They cry in the middle of the bank, or they throw a tantrum in moments that you would feel embarrassed, and they don't care. They are free to feel their emotions. They can hold them without any problem. It is when the parent can't hold the child's emotions that the child learns, oh, this emotion is bad. This emotion I shouldn't feel. And then they learn to have a hard time holding their own emotions. Does that answer the question, Nika?
At the end of the loop of expressing the same old,
Yeah.
same old.
So in that case, like let's say somebody has a hard time getting out of their sadness. They're always sad all the time or always angry, and they don't have any problems with anger, then that's not the emotion that is the problem. Or even sadness. Like, let's say I'm angry all the time and I express it all the time, and that means that if somebody comes to me angry, I would totally get that person. I'd be like, yeah, I know what you feel. It's okay to feel that way. I'm pissed too. So anger is not the problem there. Something is creating the anger, and that is very different. So what that something is the place to go and look at. And what it could create the anger is the unmet need, which then we go and look for in our healing process. Obviously, I cannot, in a 1 hour talk, give you all the tools to right now go home and do all of the healing needed, because healing is a lifelong process that requires training and learning how to do it. But if I were to convey a message, and then maybe we go straight into questions, is that you can heal, and it's much better than to numb. You will take care of the problem right away, and that is important to know that it can be done, and it's important to know how it can be done. Healing settings is definitely the right place to do that, and psychedelics is one potential healing setting, but there's many others, and I would encourage you to go look for whichever healing setting you feel called for, but please start doing healing, because I don't believe there's anything more important that we can be doing for our own well-being, for the well-being of the world, and the well-being of our children. So that's it for today about real healing being real. And now maybe we can go to some questions, comments, or complaints. I have a bunch of complaints already, by the way. Yes, my friend.
It's okay to feel that way.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you for holding my feelings of complaint. You are really good at it. I guess you like to complain too.
Yes.
Fantastic. So, if you didn't hear it, the question is it possible to heal completely? His guess is no. And is our healing going to also help our children? Your guess, it is my guess that is right. So I also don't think that we can heal completely. I also don't think that the point of healing is healing completely, because for every step that you make along the way in the healing process, you experience the benefits right away. The idea of fully healed, I also think is coming from a wound, from like a collective wound of, which is like a more goal-oriented mindset that we most of us have, which is to achieve and get things fully done. I honestly believe that a long time ago, people weren't thinking that way. And as things showed up, you heal them, and you get wounded again, and then you heal them. I mean, you can think about it physically. You probably will get wounded physically again, like whether it is because you, I don't know, like got cut with a rose, or because something fell on you, or you crashed your bike or something, and then you go and heal it. And the same happens with the emotions. So I would say to the idea of fully healed that the best thing that we can do to heal that is to change the mindset to it's okay to be always healing. And it's also great. I like healing. There's nothing wrong with always having more to do. Every time you do some healing, something gets liberated in you, which you can only experience in the moment of liberation, but not once it's fully liberated. Once it's fully liberated, it's gone. And you are already healed in that way, and you experience the benefits right away, but eventually that feeling goes away because it is a feeling of being trapped and then getting liberated from it that gives you this idea of like how awesome it is to be healing. So, and then about the children, 100%. That's like absolutely. All the healing that you do is healing that your children are not going to have to do themselves. And all the ways in which you are wounded that are related to your parents are there because your parents have not done it themselves. And we can point our fingers at them, but we can also know that the reason why they didn't do that healing is because they weren't ready for it or it wasn't available. So this is one of the messages I want to convey. It is available to us now. And if you're here listening to this, it's because you're most likely ready, or this can get you closer to readiness. A person who punishes their child for having bad grades is a person who has not healed around the idea that who you are as a whole is lovable, and not that you need to be loved when you achieve or when you do certain things. And that has probably come from their own parents who taught them that. So this is why the ways in which we wound our children are all of the ways in which we have not healed. So yes, please do this for your own children too. Yes. Yes, you definitely can track your healing based on how your personality changes or on how things affect you. I mean, there's a moment where when we become adults that most of our personalities are already formed. And one thing I didn't talk about today, and I'm not going to go in depth in it now, is that all of our wounds also create most of our gifts and of the good things that and of the amazing people that each one of us has become. And so you don't necessarily want to change everything of who you are. What you want to do is seek for the wounds and heal them so that, for example, if I am personally a very compassionate person. Like I have a lot of compassion for people's pain. And part of my compassion comes from my own wounding. Now, if I would not have healed my wounds, then if I see you in pain, maybe I would not give you the compassion that you need, because you might need a compassion that's very different than the one I can give because I am in so much pain when I'm seeing you in pain. And so I might do things for you that you might not want or need. I might hug you too much or call you all every day, and at the end of the day, it's not that I am worried for you. I just cannot hold the level of pain that you're in, and so I am acting from that place. But if I heal that, I can keep my compassion and get attuned to you and what you need in that moment without putting my wounds on you. And when we don't heal, this is happening at all moments, all the time. We're always giving our gifts, both from our gifted place and from our wounds, and they get stained, and so the gift cannot be fully given in a way that it would be. And so the person's always receiving. This is why a lot of people, when someone does something good for you, it's very common that sometimes people can't really receive it. It's because unconsciously they are receiving the other person's pain as well. They don't know that that's going on, but it's happening in the subconscious level. So healing can change your personality in ways that you really need it. So if you're always bursting out with random emotions, that might go away. or if you used to talk to people on top of them and interrupting them, you might now have healed whatever was causing that and be like much more patient, or you might become a better listener. Your personality, you're still going to be you. Unless you heal, I mean, if you were an assassin and you were killing people all over, and you somehow heal that, which sounds difficult but possible, then yeah, maybe something that's a big trait of you changes. For example, I changed a lot. I was an atheist, only as like science-based, everything. Like I would not have ever been able to talk like this. I'm much more quiet, and I like my energy is much softer. I am still me, but definitely I have, and there's certain moments and situations where I can recognize that I would have acted very differently without healing, that I would have exploded, or that I would have maybe the opposite. Maybe the healed version of me explodes in anger, whereas without healing, I would contract and keep it all in. So it's good to track how things have changed. So the question is there any point, if your parents are conservative and closed up, is there any point on pushing them to heal, or is it better to give up and just focus on your own, right?
Yeah.
Anything else that I missed? They're closed, and you don't think that they want to heal. Okay.
I see they're really close.
Yeah. This is a sensitive topic, and yes, there is definitely a point to show them a way. The best thing that you can do for yourself is, when you do that, is to not expect anything from them. And there's a likelihood that they might say yes. There's a bigger chance that they might say no. But even if they say no, they now know, and they know that you're up for that. And the best thing that you can do is focus on your own healing and proving to them, but not because you're wanting to prove anything. You're just doing your own thing, and in the meantime, they will slowly notice the change. My own mom has done ayahuasca without me ever proposing it to her, and without me ever thinking that she was going to do it. She just saw the changes on me, and she's like, whatever you're doing, I want it. So it's like, okay, like I was super surprised. I couldn't believe it. And things can change in ways. For example, they might yell at you like they always did, and you might respond by saying, Dad, I am not going to let you talk to me like that anymore. Whereas before, you might have been like, but you're telling me that, but it is you who did it. Like you might have engaged in that loop. And now you learned, let's say that your healing was around boundaries and about honoring yourself and how you're feeling. And it's like that, when you said that, that does not feel like you're honoring who I am. And now I'm only going to accept people in my life who honor who I am. You might say that, and you might blow their fucking mind. Be like, who is this guy? What did you... And something about what you said is so true and so real that it might land in places that they didn't even know that they had. And so maybe nothing happens for a while, but then every single little thing that you have done is going to show in your personality in little ways. And then one day they might be open for it. Or one day you might be like, hey, Dad, or maybe they mention, say, hey, Mattia, you have changed so much in the past 2 years. What have you done? And you're like, this thing I've been telling you about, would you want to know more about it? Like, I think it's going to be good for you. But there's no like trying so hard. And in the meantime, all you can do is love them. Just love them, and the more you heal yourself, the easier it's going to be for you to love them in places that it used to be really hard because they have wounded you in those places. They might not, I think at the end of the day too, there's like a coming into peace or an acceptance with the idea that it might not be for them in this lifetime. At least maybe not all the way. It might be a little piece, but whatever that is okay. Yeah, it's their journey, as this one is yours. All right, so I want to say thank you to each one of you for coming here and for listening to all of this. Thank you for being interested in healing, and I really wish you a lot of success in your healing journey.
Thank you.
Click on the left square to watch another video I made on a related topic. All my content is free. If you appreciate it and wish to assist me to continue releasing this kind of content, please consider supporting me on Patreon. You can also follow me on my socials and subscribe to this channel.